just be prepared to look really bad, or to feel like you look really bad. I mean, you think you put on makeup in the morning and that'll help you look good during the day, but you just sweat it all off. And you're walking around every day, like 20,000 steps a day, and you're just gonna feel gross all the time. So I would say bring clothing that's very breathable, that you can wash easily, preferably nothing white, because there's a lot of dirt there, and a lot of the time you teach people in the street, you'll be sitting down on a rock and teaching people or whatever. So nothing white, very breathable. Unless you're going to be serving in one of the mountainous areas, it gets cold there. So bring a jacket also, like a rain jacket. Yeah, learn hairstyles before you go too, because I did my hair in a ponytail pretty much every day, and it wasn't that exciting. And I felt, you know, you just don't feel beautiful, which you want to as a sister missionary, because you see like sister missionaries on Temple Square and they are just so put together and aren't sweating at all, and their hair looks really good. That's not the way it is in South America. You just look really bad all the time, but it's fine, and you just learn to love it. But I would definitely say learn new hairstyles, so every day is kind of different and fun, I guess. One time when I was in Guayaquil, this was my second area, and I was still being trained. It was in my second 6 weeks of the mission, and my companion and I were walking along with a member, and this was back when male members could accompany us, but now they can't. So anyway, before that rule was instated in my mission, we had a young man who was preparing to go on a mission come with us to visit one of our investigators. And we were crossing the street singing this little song that kids sing, and just kind of, you know, being happy. It was a good day. And this moto taxi drove by us, and all of a sudden someone stepped down from the moto taxi while we were crossing the street, and we didn't think anything of it, and he got back into the moto taxi and they drove away, and I didn't think anything of it. But the member who was with us said, "Wow, you guys were really brave back there." And we're like, "What are you talking about? Like, we're crossing the street." And he said, "No, did you not see that guy come down and come towards us? And did you hear what the other guy said?" And we were like, "No, like, what happened?" And he said that the guy who had come down from the moto taxi, he was coming towards us, and he thought that he was going to rob us. And then the guy who was driving the moto taxi, he said, "No, not them, don't ride them." And so the guy just got back in and they drove away. And I was like, that is a miracle, because in that same area I'd seen someone get robbed, and the guy had a gun, and it was just scary. But we were protected, like, big time. I mean, and I just felt in that moment a feeling of peace, that Heavenly Father really was watching out for us. And that's not to say that you're not going to get robbed as a missionary. I mean, that happens to a lot of missionaries, but he definitely protects his missionaries. And I felt that in that moment, which was cool.
I'm actually very grateful that I knew somebody who served in my mission before I went to my mission, because she gave me tips before I left, and I took them seriously, and I'm very grateful that I did. Probably the biggest tip that I have for the Quito mission, be it Quito South or Quito North, like regardless, I would say get a very good umbrella and bring it like from here. They have umbrellas down there, but you'll probably go through many if you buy them down there. All my companions who bought their umbrellas in Ecuador, probably, I mean, even within a 2 transfer time together, I had at least 2 companions that had to buy 2 or 3 umbrellas during that time. In Quito itself, It rains almost like clockwork. You can almost guarantee either rain or hail every afternoon. I learned that from my very first day in the mission. When we got there, it was about 2 o'clock and thunderstorm rolled through because you're at the top, you're up in the Andes Mountains. And so I don't think there were very many days, at least in Quito, that I didn't see rain. And so that would be my number one thing, would be to bring a very good umbrella. And not a huge umbrella, just one of the small ones. A good idea also, I didn't have very many and I wish I would have had more. Thankfully I had companions who had many, but cardigans are also really good. Cardigans are really good because in Ecuador, at least I served in the mountains my whole time, and on average during the day it was probably in the 60s, upper 50s, 60s, lower 70s, year round. And that was during the day, and obviously you're out for the entire day. And so there were many times where I wouldn't actually have a coat or a jacket with me, but I would just have, I actually learned it from my companions, I would just carry a light cardigan with me, and a scarf. Those were like my two, I guess my three essentials would be cardigans, scarves, and an umbrella. Those were the three things that I always had, because there were many times where all I needed to do in the evening, once it started getting cold, I'd throw on my cardigan, I'd throw on my scarf, and I would be fine. I wouldn't need anything more than that. Sometimes during the actual winter time, I might have a pair of gloves in my backpack, just to keep my hands warm. But overall, those were like my three go-to things, outside of obviously carrying my scriptures and copies of the Book of Mormon with me to give to people. Backpacks are always really good. Sunblock, lots of sunblock. I wasn't very good at wearing sunblock and I paid for it. I was almost always burnt, especially on my scalp. You don't think about it a lot because it's not overly warm, at least not in the mountains. I know out in the Amazon it gets warm, and out on the coast it gets very warm and humid in both of those areas. But because you're on the equator, you're so much closer to the sun. And so even though it's not necessarily hot outside, the sun is out and the sun is a lot stronger because you're closer to it. And I don't think there was a time I was not sunburned over the whole course of my 18 months. And all my companions would always make a comment about the fact that I wasn't wearing sunscreen. So take sunscreen, lots of sunscreen. Another one would be, and I know a lot of foreign countries, this is just a good idea and tip. I wouldn't worry so much about taking 18 months worth of shampoo and conditioner. However, if you are a contact wearing sister or missionary, period, I would take 18 months worth of contact solution. I didn't have contacts on my mission, but I did have companions who did, and they all told me the same thing, to take lots of that. And obviously 18 months of feminine hygiene products is a good idea too. You can get them there, but they're a lot more expensive. So I would recommend not doing so. I've heard good things about buying in bulk from Costco, so there's an option for you. Also, makeup. Take 18 months worth of makeup. Just a tube of mascara in Ecuador is about $18. So that's just to give you an idea. So I would take a whole mission's worth of that. Safety tips. First and foremost, follow the guidelines in the missionary handbook. Honestly, if you're obedient and you follow those, you're going to be protected because you're being obedient. But also, I mean, be aware of your surroundings, most definitely. Not only that, don't ignore any feeling that you might have from the spirit. I actually have an example of this. When my very first area, we had met up with a family, and it was, at this time I was only with my trainer, so there was just the two of us, and we met up with a family. We'd given them a lesson, and we were leaving, and we were going to go one direction because it was shorter to get back, rather than going the other direction, which would have added a good 10-15 minutes onto our travel time. And so we left in all purpose intention to go this direction, and as we came around the corner, I kind of had this feeling, but apparently she had the exact same feeling, because both of us kind of at the exact same time, we kind of glanced at each other, and it was we shouldn't go this direction. And instead of ignoring that, we listened to that, and we just turned around and we walked the other way. So even though it added 20 minutes to our time, we knew that it was better to take a longer route than to take a risky route. And so those would be my biggest safety tips. If you're on the bus or the metro, never put your backpacks on the ground or up above, like in the loft or in the bag holding area. If you're sitting, have it on your lap and have your arms around it. And if you are not able to sit, which is a very common thing, usually you have to stand, still pull it in front of you and have it in front of you and have your arm around it, especially where the zippers are and where they connect, like where they open. Because if your hand's there, then it's less likely. There's a lot of pickpocketing that happens on the trains and on the buses. And so it's not a good feeling when that happens, because I did have that happen to me. So that would be my biggest safety tips.